the sort of the elephant in the room is, one of our competitors decided to take one phrase out of context, post up on social media, and then created a big sort of to-do stir that, kind of got a few of us kind of going, what's going on here? And we figured, why not just do some Q&A, kind of talk a little bit about, the EXP model in general. Obviously we built a very, very unique model. Back in 2009, I was trying to figure out a way to basically build a recession-proof business for me as a broker owner, but also for me as a team leader. Having run both, started as an agent in 2002, so I'm now I'm a little over 20 years in the business now. Started the business in 2002, started the team in 2004, figured out a lot of the challenges around the revolving door of real estate, especially when it comes to team building and trying to solve for how do we actually build something long-term sustainable for me as a team leader, but also for our agents that are on the team, and then ultimately, turning into a team-based brokerage in 2007, and then launching EXP Realty in 2009 as the most agent-centric real estate brokers on the planet. And we reinvented the model of how I've referred to as aligned compensation, and that's by creating a super lucrative revenue share program for agents that has literally changed the lives of thousands of agents with EXP. It's been a game changer to see agents that have literally said and come up to me at events and various things that EXP has changed their life, and it's pretty awe-inspiring for that to happen. We introduced the first company in the history of real estate to actually share equity with our agents directly. We did that starting. We bought a public company in 2013. We started to share equity in 2014, and 2015 was the first year that we actually grew 100% year over year, and it's been, again, a rocket ride ever since. It's interesting. It wasn't until really only about 2 or 3 years ago that we actually started to have competitors actually start to copy various parts of our model, and that was one. I expected it to happen way sooner because I knew that this was the model of real estate for the future, but it took a while. It wasn't really until about 2020, 2021 that we started to get some competitors. I think I'm tracking right now about 6 different competitors that have basically knocked off EXP's business model and sort of adopted it for their own, not knowing exactly why we did the things that we did in terms of the way that we created the model. I'm proud to say that as a real estate brokerage, we have the most people in leadership, myself included, who have actively sold real estate, which is a pretty incredible part of the model as well. We've lived the business in your shoes. I've lived the business in your shoes as an agent, running a team, lead generating, lead converting, hiring agents, hiring staff, building all of that, and trying to figure out all these things along the way. We've introduced a lot of new tools and technologies for agents to be able to incorporate in their business. We were the first company to actually introduce a plan on a national basis. We're the first commercial plan for KV Core. And you might have heard about some of the enhancements that are taking place right now with Core Home. Actually, it's 360 Home in the App Store, and we're iterating around how to continue to improve that. We've generated, I think, over 40 million leads. And I say we, it's really you, that have generated over 40 million consumer contacts into KV Core. And some of the things that we're doing now with 360 Home, and then some new things that are coming down the pike. It's going to be pretty amazing just to see those things happen. And then, of course, we've worked out discounts with companies like Chime and others, which are pretty exclusive as well relative to EXP. So we've got a lot of great leaders. Leo Perea, who's heading up he's the president of affiliate services, but also the chief strategy officer. He was the number one team at Keller Williams back in 2012. So another top leader in the company who's now taking his expertise of both running a large team, also running a company and startups, and actually bringing things into our ecosystem. He's launched an initiative called Revenos, which actually has a lot of exclusive tools and functionalities inside of that specifically for EXP agents that you can't get anywhere else. I mention all that only to talk through the fact that we've really created this super agent-centric real estate brokers that we continue to work on each and every day. One thing we're continuing to work toward is sort of the growth of the company. The growth of the company. We've talked about the idea that 5 years, and again, these are aspirational, directional goals. Is how do we get to 500,000 agents in the next 5 years? How do we get to 1 million agents in the next 10 years? And maybe that happens sooner, maybe it happens slower. But how do we continue to do those things? And how do we take all these learnings that we pull in each and every year and update that into our operating system of the company? And our operating system is really around kind of two tools. It's our independent contractor agreement and our policies and procedures. And this year we released these. I think only in the last day or so. We sent out emails. Obviously, got those out into the ecosystem. And for whatever reason, I've never seen this happen before in the history of my being in real estate. Somebody's taken one phrase out of the entire document and now has made a big deal of it. And it's all around really the subject being non-solicitation of agents if you go to another brokerage. And that's really kind of the one thing that we've had really since we started the company. I recognized even back in 2009 that we would eventually have copycats that would want to try to take us apart from the inside. And so we introduced a concept which was basically, if you go to a competitor, there's nothing wrong with going into a competitor. And if you have run a real estate team, obviously your team's going to follow you wherever you go. But it really was around this whole concept of, do we want to provide the ammunition for people to have learned EXP sort of inside and out, basically understand the ecosystem of agents, and then start to solicit them to go and start a new company. And, one of our big pieces is that, we want to protect the model for all of the agents that are here. One of the things we've done, obviously the revenue share is a big deal for agents. The equity is a big deal. We've got a 3-year vest on most of the equity. And part of that is to ultimately create a version of we'll call it just, golden handcuffs. I mean, it is one of the things that I thought would be a way to solve one of the biggest challenges in real estate, and that is the retention piece. And prior to EXP, if you left to go to another brokerage, you weren't leaving anything on the table. You could have left from Remax, Coldwell Banker, any of the number of different brokerages and brands that are out there, because you weren't actually a co-owner in those companies. You weren't actually part of the ecosystem, the glue, and you were just really a tool of the larger enterprise. You weren't able to actually enjoy the benefits that enterprise would create. And so we created, I don't know what the number is in terms of number of millionaires in real estate, but we've created a number of millionaires, both in the passive income category, but also in the equity category. And this is all part of a larger, initiative to basically build, again, the most agent-centric real estate brokerage on the planet. I've got, Holly on here and Jim Bramble as well. But, one of the things that we wanted to kind of set your mind at ease with, and Holly, I know you were working on this last year before, and you've went through a couple of these changes. I think you've said that you've been looking at the agreements all the way back through to 2018. And maybe you could just describe, if you would, and for those of you who don't know, Holly, she's been an agent. She's been a broker, managing broker. She's been involved with a number of different companies over the years. But maybe Holly, you can share just what's been the process. What's changed? Is it generally the same agreement? I think it is, but what was the whole process, and how do we go through this process each year?
Thank you, Glenn. Absolutely. So, like every company, a real estate company, we have to have a policies and procedures and independent contractor agreement. That is our agreement with you to help you do a better business. And throughout the year, we take feedback from agents and staff and attractors, and we also watch the market so we can update the ICA and PNP to be the most agent centric, but also to continue to be incredibly competitive. So what you see in your email with the updated ICA and PNP was really based on the last 18 months of feedback from you all on how we can be better and really streamlining a few things. And so a couple of key highlights that I'd love to point out are basically around if an agent should pass away, how we take care of them and their family. That has been a policy we've created and have had in practice, but now we were able to put it in writing so it's absolutely transparent to anyone looking at EXP. Additionally, we wanted to make sure that wholesaling has definitely been top of mind for a lot of our agents out there. And we've been able to do some exceptions to our previous policies and procedures that basically prohibited wholesaling with guardrails. And so now that we've defined those guardrails to protect the company and protect our agents, we've provided for how to do that with a modicum of, doing a better business and protecting you and your license. And so those are some things that we really sought to put in place to clarify, but many of the updates that you see are truly carryover. We shrunk the independent contractor agreement. So when you go into the joint app, it's easier to move through. And so a lot of things like the fee schedule that we have, that was just moved from the ICA to the policies and procedures. So again, just trying to make things more seamless to move forward.
Yeah, one thing I'm noting, by the way, on Workplace, and we will have this recording as well, and so you may not be able to see the questions in real time, but if you see some questions, I know there's a bunch of them, upvote the questions that you would like to get addressed. We'll try to address the questions that are make the most sense here to address. I mean, the first one, and this was the one that I think got posted first, was around really that non-compete. And it's not a non-compete, it's a non-solicitation. And it doesn't have to do with your team. It has to do with agents at EXP. The basically what we've had in the last couple of years is we've literally had agents saying, hey, I keep on getting call from so-and-so. Is there something we can do there? And we do have a clause in the ICA, which we've had for a while, relative to non-solicitation, I think maybe even since the beginning of the company. But the idea is that in those cases where it becomes apparent that people are calling all of our agents that were ex-EXP and that their whole mission is just to call agents at EXP, we basically point out that there is a non-solicitation in their prior agreement, and so that's really the idea, that we've got some teeth there to basically sort of protect what we've all built together. And maybe Jim, maybe you can just touch on what's the difference between a non-compete and a non-solicitation. And obviously, correct me if I've said something wrong in the whole process as well.
No, that's great. I think that you're correct. There is a distinction in between a non-compete and a non-solicitation. Both of those provisions are provisions that are common in the real estate industry. A non-compete that survives the termination of an independent contractor agreement basically says for a certain time period, sometimes it's 6 months all the way up, I've seen, to a year, an agent cannot move to a competitor after they leave a company. And we do not have a non-compete. We've never had one, and we have not introduced one now. A non-solicitation is what you were describing, right? Non-solicitation says that for a certain time period after you leave, you can't contact EXP agents asking them to leave EXP. And that's designed to protect the existing agents who stay here and their teams and their revenue share. No changes have been made.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And let me just, I'm going to go back and please upvote some questions if you see some things that need to get updated. You know, one things we learned here in the last couple of years now, Holly, you worked on it quite a bit, and I think you already touched on it. Previously we've actually had to give people exceptions. They basically had to make application to some extent to do wholesaling. I know it's part of our ICA. I know that Guy Fain was asking about it, and should we even allow it? Maybe you can just describe, you know, how did we come up with the guardrails so that we don't have to do it as much by exception. It's now being done as long as you operate within certain guidelines.
Absolutely. So wholesaling, it's kind of a next level transaction, right? When you first get your license, we can all agree that real estate school doesn't tell you how to sell real estate. The real world does. And so when you look at wholesaling, that kind of next level transaction, we didn't necessarily want brand new agents venturing into that without proper, mentorship and guidelines, right? The NAR Code of Ethics already says we have to disclose if we're doing something for the first time. We need to do it in writing, and we should have somebody have our back as a mentor or your broker and so forth, kind of watching through that transaction. What we found with wholesaling over the years is that we had some very, very talented groups of people who specialize in it. And what we wanted to be able to do is provide for them a place to run those through the company in a manner that was consistent with EXP values. So proper disclosure on all documents, proper disclosure to the seller, proper disclosure to downline buyers, so everybody could understand what was going on. And so when we start to look at wholesaling, that was really important to us. As a result, if you're interested in looking at wholesaling as part of your business, as you're doing your business plan going into the new year, I really want to encourage you, reach out to your state broker. Our regional operations managers have been working with all of our state broker teams to make sure that agents understand, because it's not a simple transaction. There are some things to be aware of. We've got some great people as part of the EXP ecosystem, as you've said, Glenn, who are wonderful mentors in this way and can help agents on the right path. But there's certain things that are not for everybody. So when you look at your business plan, we just wanted to make sure that we gave you some gentle guardrails, but also encourage you to reach out to your state broker.
Yeah, by the way, I see this question in here. Basically, it's around calling agents and trying to get them to leave. It's not about people reaching out to you and saying, hey, I just saw you went to XYZ, or if you post on social media that you just started a real estate brokerage of your own, and people reach out to you to ask about that or what have you. If people call you and reach out, it's sort of like inbound marketing. If they reach out to you, that's fair game. That, what we don't want to have is just people, smiling and dialing every agent in the company. That's the thing that we're trying to solve for, and we generally solve for that. Again, none of this would be an issue if it wasn't, yet I've never seen it happen before, but taking a piece of somebody else's PNP or ICA, it's not something that I would normally do and post on social, but it did create a lot of angst here. Let's see. I know that we had some stuff relative to TCPA. We unfortunately had to settle a TCPA case, and basically that's the telecommunications, or what's TCPA? It's the Telecommunications Protection Act, or
that's correct.
But we paid out a settlement. I think it was 10 million. That was earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken, and that was with regard to people using dialers to make unsolicited calls and also phone numbers that may have been on the do not call list and some other things. But maybe Jim, you can just talk to sort of philosophically what we were updating relative to the TCPA and our policies and procedures.
Yeah, that's a good question. And the compliance with the TCPA and other similar laws that govern the industry, like the CAN Spam Act that prohibits spamming, that's always been required. Requiring compliance with those laws is not a change to the ICA. But what we provided is some education, some points on how to comply, to make it easier for agents to know how to comply. Because we found that actually some of the agents whose conduct caused that lawsuit that resulted in the fine, they didn't even realize that what they were doing violated the TCPA. So we upped our game on providing some better education.
Right. Yeah. No. Good stuff. And then I know, Holly, we've got an update to the Join app that just either got released or there's some things that are getting even released early in the new year. Maybe you can just talk about sort of that process and how that's going to make it easier for agents to kind of go through that process.
I'm really excited. Our IT team is working diligently on the dynamic Join app, and they're putting the finishing touches on that. That will launch as part of the refreshed ICA that's shortened. And so our hope is, as you're bringing agents to EXP, that will help kind of streamline that joining process. We're looking to really make an impact on welcoming agents so they're not overwhelmed with emails and overwhelmed with just this fire hose of things, but rather the Join app streamline allows us to move forward in other things in the new year, as far as connecting agents with their broker, getting them into state meetings, helping them get connected to their mentor. All of those things are rolling out as we go into Q1. And so this is just one of those big pieces that allows us to be better for you and the agents you bring to our company.
Awesome. Are there some things that we haven't addressed so far that we should touch on? I think there's been a request that maybe we do a 1 or 2 pager up of any updates between the older ICA and PNP versus the new one. I know there's not a lot of substantive changes. Maybe there isn't any substantive changes. It's more just cleanup. But what are, and Holly, maybe you can touch on, what, if any, substantive changes are in the ICA and PNP?
Well, the biggest substantive change, if you will, is the ICA is smaller, and a lot of the data or information has been moved to the policies and procedures. They are a tied together document, so you can't have one without the other, because I think there was some confusion of, am I breaking my contract in the ICA? No, they go hand in hand. And so a couple of things that I do want you to know as far as overreaching, again, that we wanted to make it easier for you. We've got a lot of agents who are co-owners in a title company. We wanted to give you the working standard for co-owning a title company and making proper disclosure to your clients. We also know that there are quite a few agents who, in the last few years, went out and obtained a mortgage broker license. Fantastic. We want to support you in that, but we also want to give you provisions for how to do it properly and not violate RESPA and other things. So that's in the IC, or in the PNPs, if you will. We also wanted to basically kind of describe what you can expect. Marketing has adjusted quite a bit. We've got an amazing marketing center for our agents, but many of you were told in the last policies and procedures to send all of your material in for marketing approval to a certain email address. And that's not the case anymore. That's been sunsetted. And so there's a broker approval, and then you move forward. But we wanted to give you the brand center with all the information so you could pull down the latest logos and be on brand as you go out and market yourself. So as to your question, Glenn, as far as a 1-pager, I liken this PNP a lot like cleaning your house for the holidays. Family's coming over, and so you needed to spruce everything up and make it look nice. And that's a lot of what we did. Thus, no red line version. That being said, we understand the need and the the seeking for clarification. And honestly, competitors, if that's the only barb they can throw at us is a non-solicitation, okay, I'll give you a one-pager that basically breaks down all of these great things we're doing for our agents that we know you can't compete with. And I feel comfortable with that.
Awesome. So again, more question. Maybe it's because it didn't come in earlier, but but if you do leave, obviously you can take your team with you. That's kind of that's a given. I'm not sure exactly how that got interpreted differently, but just to be clear, if you have a team and you leave, obviously your team's going to follow you because you're the rainmaker and you're providing the benefits to those teams. Let's see, I'm kind of looking through here. There was a question around I saw it the other way is the $500 company dollar on low price commission. So I saw or low commission transactions. So if somebody wants to, and this has been actually in our ICA from day one as well, which is if you do take on a listing and you want to give a discount to the seller or a rebate to the buyer, you just have to make sure that you cover the $500 in company dollar if you haven't capped, because we pay out half of that. So basically we're operating on $250 on that transaction. So we haven't adjusted that up or down, but that's been what it's been since the beginning. But is there any, did we clarify that one in the
We
current?
sought to clarify that, Glenn, and mainly because I know, price points vary throughout the country. I've got an amazing agent. She icons every year in Arizona, but I know that her list price is for the lots that she lists, it's right around $8,000. And so it is an 80-20 split on those commissions, but it's when we start to get into anything that would be higher level. I know somebody had asked about, well, my commission is not at 3%. It's a little bit less because of my marketplace. We absolutely understand that, and we work with you.
Yeah, and basically, as long as there's if the property price is, what it's like most places around the country, even if you charge lower, you're going to be well above the $2,500 minimum commission in 99% of cases. And then if there's if it's a low dollar transaction, generally you're going to have a 3% commission on a side anyway, or it would be $500 company dollar. So that's kind of the it's either 20% of 3%, I think it is, or $500, whichever is less. And if for some reason it's less than 2,500 and it's a higher dollar property, then it's
less than 500.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah, less than 500. So truly, we recognizing that the market is going through changes and there's pressure on agents to potentially give credits to sellers, but understanding they can't give it all away, and there has to be something that comes in.
Right. Let's see. And so we won't allow a discount to the seller, although there's a field for other discounts. Not sure what that means, because obviously you said it's negotiated between the agent and the seller. So, but I see that in Canada, so not sure. Reading through here, any changes to switching sponsor without leaving the company for 6 months? I don't think there's any changes there. By the way, there's a lot of debate on that one. I hear it on both sides. I hear people that say that nobody should ever be able to change sponsors for any reason whatsoever, that once they're in, they're in. And then we've got others that say it shouldn't take 6 months. And we so that is just so we've kept it there. Some people said, well, at least make it a year. And we're like, we haven't changed it. 6 months is a pretty good length of time. Let's see here.
If I may, Glenn, there were no changes to rev share. There were no changes to company fees.
Right. There weren't. Yeah. In fact, one of the things I keep on getting asked, and I get asked, by the way, by numerous people. I'm in investor meetings all the time, and the investors keep on asking me, what if you increase your cap, or what if you increase your fees? And literally, I'm not. I just say that's not in the cards. We're not going to go there, and so that's been one of those ones that, and it's a nice thing too, because we're kind of unique in that over 50% of the company is owned by our agents, brokers, and staff, which means that and the way that we distribute equity, and the way that we handle our buyback, which is pretty unique as well. It always keeps a high concentration of our shareholdings with those who are actually doing the work, which allows us to control our destiny long term. That's pretty unique. Most companies out there, the ones that are generally public, that have the types of benefits that we're providing, they don't have any of that ownership of any significance with their agents, brokers, and staff to sort of keep their model pointed in one direction. So I wouldn't be surprised in some of those other models if their fee changes don't take place, and if their caps aren't raised and other things take place, because it's just the nature of investors. They're kind of like the scorpion. They keep on stinging things. They keep on trying to get companies to raise caps and fees in the real estate space, and we're keeping us on a solid course long term with a really great model. Let's see. Anything else I don't know if, Jim, you're reading through any of these comments, but any of them that you see that we should touch on?
I don't see anything in the comments. I would point out one thing we did to kind of clarify and make a process that was a little more difficult before much easier, and that is provide guidance and make it easier to provide succession for your revenue share in the case of the death of an agent or incapacitation. That, as we were smaller, that didn't happen very often, and the process was kind of complex, and we've really streamlined that and given guidelines now in the policies to make that easier.
One thing we could do, and this is a little bit on the fly. I'm reading through the comments. There's a number of people that think 2 years is too long on the non-solicitation, but we could probably think about getting this sort of in the hands of agents who have built a revenue share organizations in the company, and sort of ask what their opinions are, because obviously they're the ones that are going to have kind of a more balanced view, but to figure out what should be the length of time. And we're all in it together. So and so as a result, we should a lot of this stuff we should see where it should land, because ultimately at the end of the day we didn't make any significant changes. Anything was basically clerical generally in this version of the ICA and PNP, but maybe we can start to look at where should we land, and if we have a consensus from those who are working on the rev share side of what that should be, then maybe we can adjust as a result. Auctioneer, I see a question around being an auctioneer. We do have agents that do auctions. What's the thinking on that, Holly?
It's state to state. Some states require a real estate license. Some states have a completely set of different standards. So that is truly going to be more focused on your state PNPs. For instance, our designated broker in Kentucky, Elizabeth Marchant, she is an auctioneer and has an auctioneer's license. So it just depends state to state in that respect.
Okay. Yeah, I saw someone mentioning this. Does EXP need a licensing? Let's see.
If I may, Glenn, one of the other questions I did see was with regard to commercial. And I just want to remind everybody, this is only for eXp Realty in the US. Both Canada and commercial are on deck, if you will, to also be reviewed and modernized. But that will come through the new year.
Okay, awesome. Well, I see a ton. I see 198 unanswered questions. They're kind of posted, I think, as comments. And so I think we have our hands, maybe my hands, cut out for answering a ton of questions here. We do have some cool announcements coming up in the new year, and so don't want to blow those, but we have some cool things that we're working on that I think you're going to be super excited about. And again, it's I'm super honored to be in business with each and every one of you. And all this stuff is we're learning together. And as I always say, everything's always in beta. So if we make a boneheaded decision around something, which we will, the nice thing is that it's always in beta, which means we're always going to be updating and being agile and making adjustments, etc. And we'll try not to give ourselves too many bruises along the way. But as I've also stated, real estate, whether it be building a company or building your own personal business, it's a contact sport. And if you're not getting a bruise here and there, you're probably not playing it to win. And nothing wrong with that. But we want you to win, and by extension, we want to win, which means playing the game and playing it in a way that means that we do make changes on the fly, and sometimes we're not going to be doing things as well as we could. But one of my favorite authors, Tom Peters, used to say that nothing worthwhile ever comes out of a formal planning process, which is another way of saying sometimes you just got to do stuff and see what happens. So do it, fix it, try it, I think was another one of his mantras, and having a bias for action, and basically having a monomaniac on a mission. And if there's anything that we have a lot of, we have a number of people who all wear the hat of monomaniacs on a mission to build the most agent-centric real estate brokers on the planet. So with that, we've been going for about 38 minutes. And Holly, I want to thank you for jumping on here. Jim, I want to thank you for jumping on here. And just know that we're here to support you. I do, as many of you know, I read and respond to most of my workplace messages. I say most because sometimes I had so many people wishing me happy Merry Christmas. That list was super, super long. But if you're asking questions or comments or things like that, I generally get to all of them within a day or two. And so if you've got questions or you've got things that need additional clarification, certainly feel free to post up on Workplace, but also feel free to send me a direct workplace message. So with that, Ollie, thanks again. And Jim, thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Glenn. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.